Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love with those that you love doing them with. It's Monday. Happy Monday. How's the Monday blues? Are you feeling okay? Did you get a little bit too much sun or maybe a little bit too much sangria over the weekend? I'm not going to ask any questions, to each their own. I'll be honest, I am struggling with the heat. It's hot. There's no air conditioning working in the house. There's beads going on here and here. It's another hot day. It's the computer heat. It's all coming at me from different angles, and I'm not a massive fan. But we got Tottenham news to bring to your attention, and that's what we do here every day. If it's in the news, we will bring you the clues and, of course, my views. But I want your views, guys. I want you to let me know exactly what you think is going on with all the stories that we're talking about. And we do have some new names. In fact, did I not yesterday say to you, I feel like there's going to be a shift in focus? I feel like what's going on in the Premier League right now with the FFP and the PSR and the shenanigans, or are they just loopholes that are being utilized? Are they by design or by intention? It doesn't matter. What is the reality is the reality. And that is that for me, some of the stories that have been percolating regarding Tottenham's transfer targets for months are probably not going to happen. I could be wrong. Listen, and I know that if some of them do materialize, I'll probably be clipped up and humiliated, but I'm speculating, but I'm just using my gut vibe and trying to interpret what I see as best I can. But I do need your like game to be strong on this video. If you don't mind, make a man who's hot feel a little bit cooler by getting some likes on the video. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop some comments. Let me know your thoughts regarding these new names that are coming in. I did suggest there be new names, and we have some new names for you today that I haven't been aware of being linked with Tottenham before. But most of the time, Tottenham are linked with these players now, as to our teams like Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, the same 4 or 5 clubs that are, in or around our pecking order in the Premier League are also linked with all of these players. And we've got 3 main stories for you. One of them comes for a player that's not new. It's a player that I've been talking about with you for over a year, Santiago Gimenez. And, I mean, I'm not sure about the link. I'm not sure about the story, the strength of it, but it's good enough for me to make a video. So I hope it's good enough for you to appreciate. Don't shoot the messenger if you do not vibe with the story. But let's start with it, guys. Let's start with it. I'm going to be using TBR Football's review of it, but it comes from something called TUDN Radios. From what I've seen, is apparently a Colombian radio station that focuses on football, a Colombian sports radio station, I believe. And they are saying that Feyenoord striker Santiago Gimenez is closing in on a move to Tottenham Hotspur. The 23-year-old striker that netted 26 times last season and 8 assists. So 34 GA across 42 appearances for the Eredivisie outfit last term is close to joining Tottenham Hotspur. The story goes on to say that as of right now, it's Tottenham that are put in a bid and Atletico Madrid that are put in a bid for the player, and that there's no one else, despite interest from Arsenal, despite interest from Liverpool, despite interest from a host of different clubs across the continent. Tottenham are the official first bidders, and that they are close enough to the asking price for it to be accepted. The asking price apparently is £42 million, so it's likely to be somewhere close to that figure, if true. And I'll say if true with a large, massive kind of like asterisk, because we have to acknowledge here, he is playing currently for Mexico in the Copa America. And so a Colombian radio station, I believe a Colombian radio station, is reporting on a Mexican player playing in the Copa America who plays for a Dutch team moving to a Premier League team. I don't know whether or not or how this particular outfit would get that news before anyone else, but that's where the story is, and that's just what I'm, basing this video on in part. There's other stories to justify it as well, I think. Listen, I'll be honest, doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me of why it would come from there first, but the story is that £42 million bid, and that they go on to say that if Atletico Madrid want to compete, then they're going to have to raise their bid, as too will anybody else. Arsenal, we know that Arsenal apparently have been looking at Santiago Gimenez. Maybe that's because of all the other things we've been talking about for the last week around, teams like Newcastle United and Villa and Chelsea and Everton getting together and kind of doing double deals between each other with youth team players at accelerated and inflated asking prices in order to get themselves the right side of the PSR and the FFP line so that they don't have to sell their best players. And maybe Arsenal were thinking that they could leverage Newcastle's situation to take Alex Isak. And maybe that answer was no. We don't need to do that or worry about you. He's staying where he is. Maybe Tottenham were thinking they could leverage Chelsea for Conor Gallagher, but that answer now is no, which is why I based my yesterday's video on the theme that I think we need to move on, and I think you'll start to see new names emerge. And while Santiago Gimenez is not a new name, there are other new names that are out there today. The first of which is a player that plays for Southampton, who goes by the name of Carlos Alcaraz. And allegedly, Tottenham and Southampton are in talks regarding a player plus cash swap deal. Joe Rodon moving to Southampton, Alcaraz coming to Tottenham, and some money. Now, I'll be honest. Be honest with you, always straight up honest, as honest as I can be. If Tottenham played tennis as their primary sport, I'd be on board Carlos Alcaraz coming to Tottenham. I wouldn't mind it. But this particular Carlos Alcaraz isn't the tennis player. He is a footballer who plays for Southampton, but spent the last 6 months on loan at Juventus. And apparently, whilst he has a market valuation of 15 million euros, this 21-year-old player from Argentina, whose stats look very good. I'll be entirely honest, guys. I've never heard of him. I don't know him. I've got his stats in front of me. I'll throw them on the screen so you can have a little look-see. But in terms of my ability to educate you on the player, I don't have much. And, consequently, I'm going to sit here and say, if it is true, then what are we doing? I mean, look, you might be able to tell me if you know. As I always say, I don't necessarily follow Serie A too closely. But look, he paid, Southampton got 3.5 or 4 million euro loan fee from Juve for 6 months worth of time for this guy. So, and he played for them, and he looks like he's done very well. He's a central midfielder, plays most of his time as a central midfielder. He also plays an attacking midfielder and has in the past played as a centre forward as well. But listen, I honestly couldn't tell you too much about the guy, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But look, according to his stats, guy looks like he's someone to keep an eye out for in terms of versus midfielders. He's right up there in terms of output, expected goals, assists. His shooting stats are very impressive versus midfielders. Passing stats not so much, but he is young. He's obviously one for the future, and defensive work and in possession. Carries into the final third, up the 95th percentile, 97th percentile for take-ons attempted, 3.84 take-ons attempted per 90 as a midfielder. Looks interesting. Tackles in the attacking third. So playing a high line, playing in that kind of vibes up there in the top 99th percentile for midfielders. Look, not going to lie. Stats look good, but I have no idea at all whether he is juicy enough that it's worth the squeeze. For me, another 21-year-old that's playing, you have to ask questions like, why did Southampton let him go on loan? Was it just because they got 4 million quid's worth of fee for 6 months worth of work? You make 4 million euros worth. That makes a lot of sense. Southampton maybe didn't need him. He's obviously played a lot of times for Southampton previously. And I think I was watching Henry Wright's report on him earlier. So I'm going to take a little bit of his ideas here. The guy's made 150 plus appearances in his young career, which is quite impressive. Obviously, maybe the majority of them came from when he was playing over in South America. Could be one for the future, could be. But again, for me, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in unless I don't know. So forgive me for the presumptuous take here, because he could be really, really good, and I'll go and do some research. If the story heats up, I'll do a little bit more work and I'll go and put it through the Y Scout tool. But on paper, I don't want another 21-year-old coming into our midfield. We are overloaded with central midfielders already. Where does he fit in the pecking order? If Piere Emile Hojbjerg does leave and goes to Juventus or AC Milan, as was reported yesterday, or Atletico Madrid, and gets to move on for 15 to 20 million euros. Is this guy supposed to replace him? Is he supposed to be better than or below Ollie Skip in the pecking order? What about Bissouma and Bentancur? We've already got the young kid from Sweden, Lucas Bergvall, coming in. We don't know what level he's going to be at. A lot of people think he's going to be sensational. Maybe he is. Fingers crossed. He could be a game changer, but he also could be just a brilliantly talented player at a very poor standard on a comparative ratio, no disrespect to the Swedish league, versus the Premier League. And so he's going to have to, learn and build up and buy up his game. But to me, Carlos Alcaraz, don't know enough about him, I'm honest. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's the wrong move, but I want to see Tottenham make a move for a midfielder that is meaningful, that's going to move the needle. I think we have enough youth team talents coming through. Apparently, our own youth team, right, that are doing good things. Tyrese Hall, Mikey Moore, Alfie Dorrington, Jamie Donnelly, maybe that Santiago kid, although he's about 22 years old now. We've got enough. What about the guys at the front end? Will Lancashire, etc. Judson Sotbell. I think we've got enough 20 to 21-year-olds that are supposed to be good enough. I don't want to see Tottenham sell Joe Rodon, who can get you 10, 12 million that goes into the bucket for our transfer kitty, but end up giving Southampton Joe Rodon and paying money for a guy that I haven't heard of. And if I haven't heard of him, I'm not suggesting I'm aware of everyone, guys. I'm really not. But maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I should be aware of him. I don't know. I'm just being honest with you. But for me, I'd rather see us get some cash money, get some readies, put it in the bank, stick it there alongside whatever we can get for Hojbjerg and Emerson Royal. If we can do a double deal with Milan for, say, 35 million euros for those two, plus Rodon cash, you get the Brian Hill cash, you get the cash for maybe, I don't know, Serge Reguilon, whatever that's going to look like. You start to pull together some decent readies, add it to whatever money we have, which I believe is around 120 million pound net spend. You get to have 170, 180, maybe 200 million quid's worth of transfer kitty, and then you go and get yourselves a Gimenez, if he's the guy, at 40 million pound, 45 million pound. Then you go and get yourself a classy winger if you can find one. And again, the problem with, like I said, yesterday's video is some of these players like Eze and Nico Williams, they all seem to have release fees that are brilliantly protecting the selling club. Generally speaking, release fees seem to come across like, good players that become great players or that appear to become great players. These release fees are built into the contracts, and it seems like it's a way for the agent and the player to be able to secure a move to a bigger club when the time is right for a reasonable fee. But actually, the way that you should be thinking about it is they're also very much a protective fee for the selling club to be able to ask for, okay, yeah, I'll sell you Eze for 60 million quid, but you're going to have to give me 50 million of it up front, which allows me to then go and drop that money over 3 or 4 players at 40, 50 million quid and amortize that stuff over the course of those contracts. It changes the cash flow of the selling club's possibilities dramatically, and shouldn't be understated how important that is in an era, in a scenario where right now this window looks like it's going to have to heat up late. There's been very little early movement. There's going to be a lot of action later on in August and July, but getting those early numbers in, like what Crystal Palace are going to do, it allows them to be a little bit less desperate to raise money from Eze because they've just sold Elise. They're not necessarily, or probably very unlikely, they're going to sell Adam Wharton or Mark Gahey. These situations are the same with Nico Williams. 50, 60, or whatever it is, 75% of the release fee up front if it has to go, even though he's already come out and said he feels the whole thing is uncomfortable. He's very happy at Atletico Bilbao. So where did Tottenham go to go and get your left winger? Well, if you go and drop money on Alcaraz and you're handing over one of the players that was going to be a cash on the books addition, then it limits what you can do. Whereas you sell Joe Rodon, you sell the guys we've already mentioned, you pull together a nice little kitty and you can go and get yourself someone that's more exciting, that's more ready now, here now. Now, yesterday I was an advocate for the Marcus Edwards transfer, but as I said, Marcus Edwards makes sense from a homegrown and a club trained perspective. for me. I like the player. I know a lot of you don't. Some of the reactions in the comment section was very typically divided. You know, I understand those of you that don't think he's good enough. Some of you say he's like he's no better than Manor Solomon, right? And that's fine. Maybe the plan is to sell Manor Solomon and bring in a Marcus Edwards and use him, and on that basis, I'm okay with it as well. But my justification for Marcus Edwards was that if you can get the deal done cheap at 15-20 million quid, then it gives you the lion's share of what your budget is to be able to go big on the striker, like a ALCAREZ for 70-80 million, whatever that release fee is, whatever that situation is with him. Or you can go and try and test the Leipzig's resolve for a Sesko or for an Openda, someone that you know is going to be around for a long time, that you can kind of really be confident in your forward options with. I'm not necessarily sure you can do that if you start messing around and going after young players that, like I say, ALCAREZ for me, not sure about him. And also give away some of your cash equity at the same time. For me, it doesn't make too much sense. But Santiago Gimenez is an interesting one. Alcaraz is an interesting one. How about this one? A new name, another new name for you. I told you they'd be coming. Fiorentina starlet Michael Kayode, £25 million rated right back, who also plays as a left back, who can play right midfield and left midfield. Well, apparently Aston Villa have opened talks with Fiorentina for the £25 million rated player, as have Tottenham Hotspur. Matty Cash has been linked with a move to AC Milan, as of course has Emerson Royal. We think that Matty Cash is too expensive for AC Milan. We hope that Emerson Royal will be the solution. One of these two teams will need to replace their right back, and there's a long list of right backs that are out there. Fullbacks in this day and age are very desirable because they're so important for so many different types of systems. If you play a back three and you have wing backs, then you need your fullbacks to be able to be, or wing backs to be able to be incredibly fit, incredibly creative going forward, to be able to get back defensively. They probably cover more ground than any other position. I'm making an estimation on that particular point, but they are, good fullbacks, good wing backs are the difference between a good team and a great team. And every specific system, no matter how you play, whether you do the kind of inverted stuff, whether you do the traditional 4-4, like 4-3-3 or 3-4-3, every single style of management from a formation and a tactical perspective requires wonderful strength in depth at your wing back. And this guy, Michael Kayode, I think that's how you say his name, Kayode, he's only 19 years old, but he was one of the breakout talents of Serie A in 23-24 season. The teenager played nearly 40 games in all competitions for Fiorentina across the league, the Conference League runners-up, across the cup competitions in Italy as well. Very, very impressive. His stats, I will bring them on the screen for you so you can have a little look-see. Again, remember, this kid is 19 years old and was a breakout talent. So you got to bear that in mind. In terms of what sort of player is he, look, I'll be entirely honest. I had to go and I've done the Y Scout tool, got my own initial thoughts on him, but I've also had to go and read some scout reports to sort of see whether or not my initial thoughts are similar to what people that obviously follow the Serie A more closely than I believe. And the takeaways from what I can see is that he's a work in process. He's a rough diamond who is certainly got bags of potential. In terms of pace, the guy has got outstanding pace, outstanding fitness. In terms of his weaknesses, if you're going to call them out, and I think the stats do suggest it as well, on the ball he's clever, but he's safe. He gets the ball and he does a lot of lateral passes, a lot of sideways. He's a good passer. He's got very high pass completion, but it's a lot of lateral and sort of backwards passes to maintain possession for Fiorentina. That's the possession-based system that they try to play. But he's not too creative, not too risk on the ball yet as a 19-year-old. Maybe that's part of his age. Maybe that's part of his maturity. Maybe that's part of the fear of making mistakes. I'm not too sure. But certainly those are the sort of takeaways with regards his on-the-ball stuff. In terms of where he's very, very good, it's the defensive side. He is defensive-minded. His spatial awareness is incredibly, incredibly advanced for someone so young. He's a very good presser, or when the system at Fiorentina involves pressing, he is aware of what he needs to do to adapt and accommodate that technique and that tactic, which will suit our system. As obviously we press a lot from a high line when we lose the ball, when we're out of position. His movement off the ball apparently is some of the best that we could see in a 19-year-old as a wing back. And this guy can play, as I say, right back, right midfield, left midfield. He is a little bit of a versatile player, which is what Tottenham are looking for. He's very good under pressure on the ball as well, apparently, which is nice to know that he's not someone who kind of loses his head under the press, under the pressure of the press. Man marking, very, very good when asked to do it for Fiorentina. And like I say, apparently, not that I'm too familiar, a very, very talented player and someone that will probably and likely be leaving Fiorentina this summer and making a move somewhere, depending on whether it's to Aston Villa or Tottenham, will depend on whether Matty Cash moves on or whether Emerson Royal does. Does he naturally fit the model of our system? I'm not sure really yet. I think it's all too young, too little sort of knowledge on him. But at 19 years old, to have played 40 games for Fiorentina and done very well across all competitions is pretty impressive. And, it looks like he has more of his defensive side of his game. Naturally, he understands it and is covered. But in terms of the question marks around what he can do on the ball, and in terms of progressing the ball, carrying the ball, dribbling, crossing, those sorts of things, there's a few more unknowns because that's not what he's yet been asked to do. But apparently he's a very clever guy and very, like, a football IQ is pretty good for someone of his age. So we shall see, guys. We shall see. So you got Michael Kayode, you got Carlos Alcaraz, both of whom that are new links. I told you they'd be coming. Both of whom, I mean, I don't really want to see us be doing this. If I'm entirely honest, like I say, I don't know what our youth team development scheme looks like in terms of fullbacks. I'm not anti these players. I don't know these players well enough to be able to sit here and tell you yes or no. What I can tell you is that Tottenham need, for me, to move the needle in certain positions, and recognizing the trends and the shifts in what's happening in the Premier League, what's happening with PSR, what's happening with our transfer targets. I think you still need to look at the reality and say, if Tottenham want to go from 4th or 5th, if Aston Villa are going to be okay because they've managed to find a way to get past the PSR stuff, they're going to be in the Champions League, that revenue's coming in. We have to recognize and wake up to there's more competition than ever, right? Newcastle are going to be better. Chelsea will be better. Manchester United will be better. Aston Villa will be better. Tottenham need to improve. And right now, I'm hearing a lot of youngsters. I'm hearing a lot of names of players that were the priority targets that aren't anymore, or that probably won't be anymore because of the situations that we find ourselves in. And I'm not seeing enough concrete links to players at all that are of the caliber that I really get excited about and think that can move the needle. We talked a few weeks ago about the likes of Dani Olmo as an attacking midfielder option. Like, that sort of thing for me gets me excited. Edison at Atalanta, that sort of thing gets me excited. But all the noises that he's going to cost a fortune and probably maybe go to Liverpool. And so, I don't know why we can't compete with Liverpool on that particular transfer. I think Liverpool, there's a lot of unknowns about Liverpool right now with their new manager, Arne Slot. There's a rebuild going on. There's going to be a lot of competition for them next season. They were struggling towards the end of last season. Some of their best players look like they might, be. I don't know if fizzling out is the right way to phrase it, but certainly didn't have as spectacular a season. So there's enough, I don't know, question marks around Liverpool right now. The end of an era, the start of a new one. Do you want to be there for the first part of that when it might not be, perfect? I'm not sure. We will see. But I want to see Tottenham concrete links to players that can move the needle in the first team. I'm a little bit frustrated with seeing young players that, most of us probably don't know too much about. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I want to see us linked with the Rafinhas. I want to see us linked with the Edisons, the Kimmiches. Maybe that's dream world. Maybe I'm stupid and delusional, but there's a lot of opportunity. A lot of players are moving around. A lot of players are no longer or a surplus to requirements now at bigger teams that need a new project. I want to see Tottenham at least bring in 2 statement signings for the summer. And Santiago Gimenez, as excited as I personally would be if we got him, I don't think he counts as a statement signing. I think he counts as an interesting option and someone that's going to come in and hopefully create, but there's a lot of risk. If you're going to put a lot of risk in the striker, then I want to see less risk with the other options. A winger, I want to see a winger come in that is where we go, wow. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I am talking about. Who is that yet? We'll find out. Not sure. I don't think it's going to be Nico Williams. And in the central midfield role, if we're selling Hojbjerg, we need a specific 6. We've got enough 8s. We've got enough of them. I don't want to see these versatile players that are a little bit of everything. No, I want a guy that can just sit and protect that back line. João Gomez, maybe? Edison? Ezequiel Palacios? You know, Florentino from Benfica. There's loads of them out there. Loads of them out there. But go and get me someone who can do the gig, that can steady the ship at the back, concede fewer goals, score a lot more, create a lot more scary stuff from the width. Tottenham can do just fine next season. That's your stories, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.